Crumpets Espresso. Crumpets Espresso.
Welcome to the Crumpets and Espresso Show. I'm Jason Longshore, be holding down the fort, getting you set for the weekend of soccer worldwide. We'll be back for soccer over there on Monday from the Brewhouse Cafe. Looks like we're going to have plenty to talk about, and we haven't even gotten into the weekend's matches. Let's go ahead and get things started with Jessica Charman chiming in on the Premier League.
Crumpet.
Hello. Welcome back to Crumpets and Espresso. Joining you on this quick segment, Jessica Charman at Jess Talks Footy on the Twitters. Big week ahead in the Premier League and in England, of course. Huge news to wake up to. Arsenal have sacked Emery. Now, Arsenal, who are famously fairly slow on the sackings, like to give their managers some time, have decided that 8th in the Prem and losing to Eintracht in the Europa League is just too much. And replacing him right now, it is an interim position, but I love Freddie Ljungberg. Used to love watching him play when I was a youngster on Match of the Day, and I'm excited to see how he does in charge. And I doubt he's going to earn the position as the manager. There have already rumors about some big names that Arsenal are contacting, but what better way to satisfy your fans than employing someone that is a club legend as far as I'm concerned. They'll play Norwich this weekend. It's definitely a winnable victory, a winnable matchup, but Norwich has some presence up top. It is going to be testing for the Arsenal defense, which hasn't been that convincing this season, but we always see with the new coaches coming in a nice spike, and hopefully Ljungberg will bring that for Arsenal, because I have a lot of friends who are Arsenal fans, and it's been some depressing times this season. There was a lot of expectations ahead of the season, and just really underwhelming so far. So we'll see if they can push up from that 8th position in the Prem. When I look at the fixture list, one that stands out to me is Newcastle against Man City. Man City, of course, are not in the position that they are used to being in right now in the league table. Liverpool far ahead of them, and it's really going to be in Liverpool's hands. We've seen them make some slips. Sorry, Liverpool fans. Pretty bad joke there. But we have seen them slip up in the past, and wondering whether this is a year that the Premier League finally comes home to Liverpool. But Man City must get past Newcastle. Newcastle really blowing hot and cold lately, having a couple of victories in the last few games, but still very unconvincing. Atlanta United fans obviously still like to follow Newcastle, look at how Miguel Almiron's doing, but something that's interesting to see is obviously Almiron was a hero for Atlanta United in MLS, was a huge overperformer, and the Premier League just hasn't come naturally to him. Of course, we have seen him be playing out of position, playing as a winger, and really just not utilizing him in the way we were seeing in MLS with Atlanta United. So who knows? Can Miguel Almiron come good? He needs to soon, because there's a lot of questioning from the Geordies over whether he really was worth the money and whether he's a good fit for the Newcastle system. One suggestion for me is to play him where he's meant to play, but I'm not the coach of Newcastle, so we shall see. I think Man City's going to have a convincing victory there and maybe put a bit of pressure on Liverpool, who are facing Brighton. Yet again, a tough side to break down, but with the way Liverpool's been performing, they've been pretty convincing overall. And, you know, the last couple of games, it's taken some last-minute equalizers, last-minute goals, and that's really what champions are made of. Those are teams that face adversity well, come through good in the end, and grind out results. But you have to wonder, how long can they continue to do this, and will their heads stay right? When you've had a history of sort of folding and choking last minute, as we say in England. They're famously a choking side towards the end of the season. You have to wonder whether that gets into the players' heads, into the fans' heads, and the more that they hold results to the line, the worse it's going to get for Liverpool. But, you know, maybe this is their year. I'd like to think it's their year. I think it's about time we have some rotation in the Premier League championship winning side. Southampton versus Watford is going to be a big one. Two struggling sides this season. Obviously, Those who know me know I have an affinity with Watford, having played for the women's side when I was younger. It's been a struggle for them. They've had a couple of good seasons now. They're hitting that rock, and we often see that in the Premier League. When teams get predictable, when teams get beatable, you have a couple good seasons, and then teams figure you out and learn how to break you down. And Watford right now, just not good enough. Did pick up their first win of the season a few games back, but still struggling are the Hornets. So I hope they come good against Southampton, who have conceded a lot of goals lately, but we shall see. And as ever, I have to end my segment, of course, with a little bit of a nod to my team, Reading FC, in the Championship. They're 18th currently. Pray for Reading, pray for Jess. If they're not to pick up a result against Wigan this weekend, Wigan below Reading in the table, one of those couple of teams that are below us right now. And it's a must-win in terms of relegation battle. No one wants to get relegated to League One, that's for sure. The further down the table you get, the harder it is to recover. You lose a lot of your quality players. And one thing that's going to be a real struggle for Reading, regardless, is the fact they do have a lot of loan players. A couple from Liverpool that have really made an impact. And when you have those one-year loans, it's very difficult in the Championship because you don't have the consistency. When you have loan players who are only going to be there for a year, towards the end of the season, this team gels, and then right away your core is gone by next season. So hopefully Reading can come good against Wigan. We saw them play against Leeds United. Anyone that has ESPN Plus, a reminder that on the weekdays there is often Championship games about 3 p.m., 8 p.m. English time, and those are fantastic ones to watch. It's a good way to get your fix in on the weekday. If you're at work, you can maybe pull it up on your phone and hide it behind your laptop. Not encouraging you into any bad habits, but it's definitely worth it. Reading took Leeds United, who are number 2, all the way to the 89th minute, were defeated on a counter-attack. Very, very frustrating as a Reading fan to see yourself hold all that way, but a positive sign. So if you want a Championship team, I do suggest Reading FC is your team. Looking forward to a big weekend of football. Remember, you can tweet me your thoughts, your comments at Jess Talks Footy, FOOTIE, and I'll be back soon on Soccer Down Here.
Crumpet.
Now that we've caught the news of the day, let's see what John's juice box or leftover Thanksgiving dishes, or maybe he still got some stale Halloween candy. I don't know. Let's see what those purveyors have to say about the weekend in England.
Thank you, Jason. Time to look at things on Saturday and Sunday, and this is where things start getting a little compressed when we're looking at matches in the Premier League, because after Saturday and Sunday, you have to turn back around for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday fixtures. So that's the fun part of schedule compression and coming off of international play, both in Champions League and Europa League. This is where the fun really starts. So let's take a peek at what's going on Saturday. Early game, Newcastle, Manchester City. Yeah, this one really shouldn't be that much of a test. Manchester City right now minus 600 to win outright. Newcastle plus 1,200 to win outright. I think that Manchester City obviously having to deal with Shakhtar midweek. Game won't be as large a margin as some folks think, but Manchester City should win comfortably. Burnley and Crystal Palace, the juice box purveyors. I guess since we're past Thanksgiving and not quite into Christmas, I'll go back and talk about it that way for a moment. Burnley is plus 125, Crystal Palace plus 230 to win outright, so folks are thinking that one is going to be a draw. Another couple of matchups with some big favorites. Chelsea minus 350 going at it against West Ham, with Manuel Pellegrini now on the short list of managers to be sacked. West Ham at plus 800. Liverpool minus 550. Brighton, once again, you don't know which one of them is going to show up. Brighton at plus 1,400. And Tottenham Spurs, under Jose Mourinho, they have found the bounce and they have found the energy, and they're thanking ball boys. Tottenham minus 275 at home against Bournemouth. Bournemouth at plus 650. Now, to two managers who are also on the sacked short list. The end of play on Saturday, the late match, Southampton and Watford. Ralph Hasenhüttl and actually Quique Sanchez Flores is being discussed as a manager to be sacked by Watford, since things really haven't taken off since he came back. They're looking draw. Southampton plus 110, Watford at plus 250. Four matches on Sunday. Norwich and Arsenal. And this one really hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot, even with the sacking of Unai Emery on Black Friday, which I guess turned into Red Friday. Norwich at plus 300, Arsenal at minus 134, with Freddie Ljungberg in charge. Don't know how much of a bounce that'll get between now and Sunday. Wolves and Sheffield United. Wolves a slight favorite, minus 110 to win outright. Sheffield United at plus 320. Leicester and Everton. Everton's Marco Silva also on the short list. Leicester minus 163. Everton plus 425. And your last match on Sunday before all of the fun begins early next week. Manchester United minus 223 going up against Aston Villa. And Villa listed to win at plus 600. Also on the board, when you're looking at a couple of matches, we can go to the championship real quick. When you get into what's going on there. I know that a lot of folks, at least on the show, are keeping an eye on Leeds and what's going on there. They're minus 334 to win against Middlesbrough. Another couple of big favorites. Brentford minus 225 against Luton Town. Everybody else, they're kind of looking at it in the draw vein. Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday, a slight favorite to win outright at minus 106. And pretty much everybody else is a draw when it comes to the championship. So not a whole lot of outright favorites when it comes to life in the English Championship, as everybody's trying to fight their way up to be in the Premier League. So that is your look at post-Thanksgiving, early December juice box purveyors, Jason. That's the run. Back to you.
Cafe con leche.
Thanks, John. Let's bounce around the leagues in Europe, and we're going to start with Spain. Interesting weekend coming up, and one of the matches of the weekend anywhere in the world is going to be in Madrid, with Atletico hosting Barcelona on Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. You can watch that on BN Sports. You can watch that at the Brewhouse Cafe and Little 5 Points on one of the 9,743 televisions that they have. There will be some on the NFL, but there will be some on Barca and Atleti. This match is the first time that Antoine Griezmann will be returning to Atletico Madrid since that controversial summer move to Barcelona. He's got a big point to prove, too, because the move hasn't exactly been successful. 5 goals in 17 matches for Barcelona so far, but he did score in Barcelona's 3-1 win in Champions League action during the week. So maybe Griezmann is starting to turn the corner for Barcelona. We'll have to wait and see. Real Madrid, who is at the top of the table alongside Barcelona, goal differential is keeping them out of that top spot right now. They are in action early on Saturday morning at 13th place Alaves. Look, last year, Madrid lost this match 1-0. So this is no guaranteed win for Real Madrid. Alaves have scored 5 goals and conceded none in their last 2 outings. Eden Hazard substituted with 20 minutes left after sustaining a dead leg in the 2-2 draw in Champions League against PSG. A very disappointing draw. Not likely to see Eden Hazard on the weekend. The story in Spain this season has been Sevilla and the bounce back of Julen Lopetegui. He took over in Sevilla after being fired by Spain, fired by Real Madrid in the span of 6 months in 2018. Man, he is rebuilding his reputation quickly, though. Sevilla is 1 point behind Barcelona and Real Madrid. They host last place Leganés in the early match on Sunday. Sevilla's won 3 of their last 5. Leganés have only won once all season long. Sevilla has been paced this season by the Argentine midfield duo of Lucas Ocampos and Ever Banega. Can that continue? They have the opportunity, depending on how things go, to be in the top spot in the table, at least for a little while, this weekend. What a bounce back for Julen Lopetegui.
Espresso.
So Nick goes to Italy, and I get to take over the espresso portion of the show. Sorry, Nick. It's a big weekend in Italy as well, because the teams that played in Europe in the midweek all had a big performance for Serie A. Inter, Juventus, Atalanta, all won in the Champions League. Lazio and Roma both won on Thursday night in the Europa League. Napoli's draw keeps them in the fight to qualify from the group stages and gives them a glimmer of hope in this crazy time that Napoli is going through right now. So they're hosting Bologna on Sunday, and they're trying to end a run of 7 matches without a win. They're playing the 15th place team in Serie A. This is about as good of an opportunity as you're going to find to get back on track. Is it going to be enough to overcome this crazy civil war that's going on between owner Aurelio De Laurentiis and the players? Look, De Laurentiis has fined the players a total of 2.5 million euros for mostly not taking part in this mandatory training camp / getting grounded after the team drew with Red Bull Salzburg in early November in the Champions League. If they don't win against Bologna, I mean, what is going to save Napoli at this point other than players leaving, Carlo Ancelotti leaving, De Laurentiis realizing that this is just hopeless and crazy? I mean, there's been talk of maybe somebody coming in to buy this thing. Oh, this is such a ridiculous soap opera, and we'll see if it continues this weekend. In other news in Italy, Cristiano Ronaldo finally made his Juventus return in their 1-0 Champions League group stage win over Atletico Madrid. Looks like he's going to play when Juventus hosts Sassuolo on Sunday. Inter Milan are 1 point behind Juventus. They host 19th placed Spal on Sunday morning. They should be able to keep that pressure up on Juve with 3 points. One note about Inter, Romelu Lukaku, Lautaro Martinez, they are the highest scoring duo that Inter Milan has ever had through 18 matches. Can they keep that up? I mean, people are saying, like legends of Inter are saying that Lautaro Martinez could be one of the most talented players that the club has ever had, and Lukaku has been everything they could have hoped for. They have the talent, and they're going to keep the pressure on Juve. I mean, that next time these two teams face off could be what decides the Serie A title.
Brötchen.
Let's move to Germany, where the Bundesliga has been one of the tightest races we have ever seen at this stage of the season. But before we get there, there's been a move at the other end of the table. Jurgen Klinsmann taking over at Hertha Berlin. Klinsmann has been appointed the manager for the rest of the season. Hertha Berlin is in 15th place right now. They're level on points with 16th place Fortuna Düsseldorf, who are in that relegation playoff spot. So Klinsmann is not getting an easy debut either. He's facing an angry Borussia Dortmund team that has had just a ridiculous week. So they had to come back from 3 down against last place Paderborn last weekend to get a point. Then they lost to Barcelona in the Champions League. Jadon Sancho, there's question marks over what's going on with him. He was dropped from the lineup against Barca after being late for a team meeting. He had a good response, though. He scored a stunning goal in Barcelona when he came off the bench. Is he back in the lineup? I mean, I would think you'd be crazy for him not to be with all the pressure on Lucien Favre right now. Dortmund needs maximum points. They're facing a team that they should be able to get maximum points against. And we'll see if Klinsmann can keep Hertha Berlin from getting relegated. Borussia Mönchengladbach is in the top spot. 6 points separate the top 9 teams in the table, and the reason why it's so tight, teams keep dropping points. Mönchengladbach lost 2-0 to Union Berlin last weekend. Could be the best game in Germany this weekend. Mönchengladbach host 4th place Freiburg. Points are pretty critical here because Mönchengladbach has to face Bayern Munich next weekend, and Bayern Munich is flying at the moment. Hansi Flick, 4 matches so far with him in charge. No goals allowed. 16 goals scored. Lewandowski just keeps on scoring goals for fun. He scored 4 in their 6-0 Champions League win in midweek, and it took him about 14 and a half minutes to do it. 27 goals in 20 matches in all competitions. He is on a record-setting pace. Can he keep it up? There's still a lot of soccer to be played this year for Robert Lewandowski, and we'll have to wait and see. Bayern Munich hosts 9th-placed Bayer Leverkusen on Saturday afternoon. Leverkusen comes in feeling pretty good about themselves as well. They won 2-0 in Moscow in Champions League. That keeps their hopes alive of escaping the group stage. 2nd place in Germany is RB Leipzig. They have clinched qualification to the knockout stages of the Champions League for the first time ever. They had to fight back to do it. They were down 2-0 in the 90th minute. Emil Forsberg scored twice, one of them a penalty, sparked a remarkable comeback, and that 2-2 draw was enough to guarantee a spot in the knockout round. They should have an opportunity to climb into the top spot depending on what Mönchengladbach does. They go to last place Paderborn on Saturday.
Do you know what Iron Brew is?
Sure, it's a cold morning, but go ahead and crack open an Iron Brew, grab yourself a sausage roll, and pull up a seat. We're going to head up to Scotland, and we're going to talk about a country that, only one part of the Isles is actually winning in Europa League, and it ain't the south part. Arsenal already fired their manager. Meanwhile, Celtic and Rangers continue to play well in a European competition, and it's just been staggering. It was a very big week for the Scottish clubs in European play because, you see Celtic defeat a Rennes team that was just looked overmatched when they go into Celtic Park and lose 3-1, the consolation goal late by the French side. And it's a weird existence right now. You're looking at a Scottish team that has locked up their group. Not only did Celtic, in the past, you'd expect them, hey, they got into the next round, backing into the 3 or the 2, getting by in goal difference. No. They won the group outright because of what happened with Lazio and Cluj as well. So now you have Celtic top of the group. You have Rangers going to Feyenoord and pull a 2-2 draw behind Alfredo Morelos. And the Rangers still have to wait to see if they make the round of 32. But the performance in Europe this year by these two teams has been staggering. And by that I mean they've moved Scotland up to 15th in the coefficient. Means you're looking at a situation in 2 years where Scotland could have 2 teams enter into the Champions League playoff rounds. And you're still going to have to work just to get into Champions League, to the pots of the group stages. But for the longest time, because of Scotland's really downturn, you only had one team get a shot at Champions League. They've had to go through a number of qualifiers just to get to the playoff. Now you've got 2 teams that are going to get a chance to go through qualifiers, perhaps another team going through on the Europa side this year. That was Aberdeen, who won their first matchup before falling in their second matchup, trying to make the Europa League group stages. And it's just been a fantastic banner year for the country with the 2 biggest clubs going out there and really showing well. Celtic buoyed once again by Olivier Ntcham, who scored that winning goal in Italy a few weeks ago. That will live on in Celtic history for a long time probably. Doesn't get on the score sheet, but really kind of woke the home side up with a long, venomous strike from about 35 yards out that was parried away. And even though it didn't go in the net, it kind of woke up Celtic. Lewis Morgan up top in place of Olsen Edouard does the fine job to get on the board in the first place, and then Celtic cruise. Meanwhile, Feyenoord looked like they were going to play Rangers off the park, and then Rangers find their feet, score 2 unanswered to take a 2-1 lead. They surrender the goal and go 2-2, but still an impressive away result. And shout out to Steven Gerrard, who I've been skeptical of at times as a manager in terms of getting his team emotionally settled for big games. It's been one way or the other. You look at the game last year against Celtic where they played Celtic off the park. It was a really impressive performance. Then this year, they were high on emotion again, but they didn't harness it correctly, and they just looked like they were out of their own heads. It was just such an up and down performance. He's really stabilized things for Rangers, and more so, I think he's gotten Morelos to channel that aggression, because you have an incredibly talented striker, the Buffalo who he is, who has dealt with a lot of emotional instability. He had a number of red cards, could not seem to keep his cool. Looks like Gerard's done a great job of managing him over the last 12 to 18 months, because now you've got a guy who's really aggressive, really hot-headed. I think is not a bad word to describe it, but he's starting to channel it in a really positive way. Starting to wonder how long Rangers can hang on to him before somebody starts dropping fat paychecks in their lap for him. As far as domestic side, just now getting back to the domestic side of things, as you've probably heard a lot on SDH, the Aberdeen-Atlanta United connection. We've covered that very thoroughly. Jason talked with Derek Ray. If you want to go back and listen and hear more about that, you can hear more about Aberdeen's history as well and the ties to Atlanta. But Aberdeen as a whole, one of those clubs that didn't have to go through administration at some point in the last 30 years, which is a very short list for Scotland. And I'm very curious how this pays off. Do we see some transfers? Do we see some loan deals? How beneficial is this relationship to both sides? So that will be very interesting to watch unfold. And we'll keep an eye as well on the rest of the table in Scotland as things progress.
All right, let's head down to Argentina for the latest from the Superliga. There's 2 more weeks before the summer break in the Argentine Superliga season. It resumes in late January. It's a 7-week sprint to the end of the season. And then after the season, you have the Copa de la Superliga, which counts for relegation purposes, but is a separate competition. It's almost like a mini league, because the 24 teams in the Superliga will be divided into 2 groups of 12. You play every team in your group, so it's another 11 games. It's not a traditional cup. It's Argentina. Welcome. Have a mate. Try to figure it out while you're sitting at the asado. River Plate, trying to figure out what happened at the end of the Copa Libertadores final. They were dominant. They were bossing the game in the first half. They were bossing the first half of the second half. It started to get a little sideways and then fell apart as a Gabigol, who hadn't really done much throughout the match, scores twice in the final minutes, and River Plate goes from figuring out how they're going to have the party, where the party's going to be, what the parade route is, to trying to pick up the pieces after shockingly losing the Libertadores final that they had dominated for so long. They come back into league play this weekend with a trip to Rosario to face 10th place Newell's Old Boys. Now, on the good side of things for River Plate, reports this week have Marcelo Gallardo not leaving in December. The club has the Copa Argentina final coming up on December 13th. That's against Central Cordoba. That win, if they get it, would put them into next year's Copa Libertadores, and we know how important the Libertadores is to River Plate. He's also, Gallardo, he's within shouting distance of the Superliga title, and that's the trophy that has eluded him during this time with Los Millonarios of River Plate. He's trying to win that trophy, and the link to Miami seems to have dissipated. The links in Europe continue to grow, but the teams that seem to be the best fits for Gallardo right now have managers in place. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting coaching carousel around Europe, and Gallardo will get mentioned in that, whether it's in the January window, if more teams make moves. We've seen Tottenham now, but they replaced Pochettino with Mourinho, but that means Pochettino's out on the market. Arsenal now has an open spot. Bayern Munich has a spot that will be open at the end of the season if they don't retain Hansi Flick. Others are open. Others potentially could be open, depending on what happens. So keep an eye on Gallardo, but it looks like he's not in a rush to leave River Plate. River has a match in hand on the 4 teams ahead of them in the Superliga table. Boca and Argentinos Juniors are both on 28 points. Lanús and Racing are on 25. River's on 24. Match of the weekend, it's an easy call in Argentina this weekend. The top 2 teams in the table face off. Boca Juniors hosting Argentinos Juniors. Tomorrow afternoon, 5:40 Eastern Time kickoff. You can watch that on Fanatis. You can also queue that one up at the Brewhouse Cafe in Little Five Points. If you ask nicely and if you call ahead just to make sure you can grab a TV, the crew can put that on for you on one of the 9,743 different televisions in the joint. So give them a call if you want to head out and watch Boca and Argentinos tomorrow afternoon. Don't expect a ton of goals here. I think it'll be a great match, but it's not going to be a high-scoring one if you look at the records. Boca have the best defense in the league. They've only conceded 5 goals in 14 matches. Argentinos, they haven't exactly been prolific in front of net. They're only averaging 1 goal per match this season. Racing in 4th. They host 16th place Defensa y Justicia, our favorites here on SDH. That match is tonight. Lanús has a tricky one. They go on the road to 11th place Arsenal de Sarandi. So, the Superliga, all your action on Fanatis this weekend. You can have it queued up at the Brewhouse as well. Another league that you need to keep an eye on, if you haven't this season, now's the time to jump into Liga MX. The Liga MX playoffs kicked off with the first legs of the quarterfinals during the week. Second legs will be on Saturday and Sunday night. It's a pretty simple format. You play, your 2 legs. It's aggregate scoring. It's 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 in your quarterfinals. The top 8 teams go in. Tigres looks to be in a great spot after winning 2-1 last night at the Estadio Azteca against Club America. The second leg will be in Monterrey. And speaking of Monterrey, the other team in Monterrey, Rayados, they came in as the number 8 seed. It's been not the greatest of seasons for Rayados, a team with heavy, heavy expectations. Well, they came bursting out against Santos Laguna and won 5-2. Santos Laguna was the number 1 seed coming in. Dorlan Pabon, the master of the golazo, he added another one in his 2-goal performance in that win. Now, they got to hold a 3-goal lead going to Santos Laguna. Can they do it? We'll have to wait and see. We'll also have to wait and see if another 3-goal lead can hold. 5th-seeded Necaxa thrashed 4th-seeded Querétaro in their first leg. Now, they've got to go on the road, and that match will be tomorrow night. The other match tomorrow night will be the second leg after an incredibly fun first leg to watch. Morelia scored deep in stoppage time to earn a 3-3 draw in their home leg against second-seeded León on Wednesday night. León, 3-3 draw going home. All they need is a win at home. They have to feel pretty good. It's going to take some more magic for Morelia at the Estadio León to get through. Now, keep an eye on León if you're an Atlanta United fan or an MLS fan for that matter, because León is the Mexican team that is in Pot 2 of the CONCACAF Champions League draw. That's coming up on December 9th. We will be doing a special Soccer Over There CONCACAF Champions League preview and viewing of the draw on December 9th at the Brewhouse Cafe. Write it down, put it on your calendar, come out and join us, but do some homework Saturday and watch León and Morelia in that second leg. León is a team that will get drawn with an MLS team. Any of the American qualifiers or the Montreal Impact could be very, very interesting because León is the team that nobody really wants to see, especially after a second-place finish in the current Liga MX season. Thank you for taking your time out on a holiday weekend to join us for some crumpets, some espresso, some cafe con leche, all kinds of different goodies. Hopefully you've had lots of goodies for your Thanksgiving meals and some leftovers today. Soccer Over There will be back on Monday, 6 to 8, live from the Brewhouse Cafe. Come out and join us, grab a mic, tell us about your team, tell us about what's going on in your favorite league around the world. We'll give you some thoughts about what we had to see this past weekend. We'll also be checking out and talking more about the Atlanta United-Aberdeen relationship. I was on a couple of podcasts that cover the Scottish game and Aberdeen specifically. Please go check those out. It was very cool to hop on and talk soccer with new friends. And I think that's the thing about this partnership that is so cool, is you're creating new friendships out of this. And it's something that is not a small thing. It's a very cool thing to see soccer bring different groups together. I'm expecting Aberdeen fans to come over to Atlanta to take in Atlanta United matches this summer. I'm expecting Atlanta United fans to make the trip to Scotland to see Aberdeen. Check out the conversations I was able to have this past week with the Pure Football podcast and the Here We Go podcast. You can check out the links on my Twitter at Longshoe, on our Soccer Down Here Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Make sure you're following both of these podcasts as you're trying to learn more about the Scottish game and specifically Aberdeen. Here We Go is at AFC Here We Go, and Pure Football is PUREFITBAW. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back for Soccer Over There on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.
Crumpet Espresso.